Hey, welcome back. It's Poetry Friday, and today I am going to talk to you a little bit about one of the fun things I used to do with the Souvenirs, the Poetry Appreciation Club, at my alma mater. So I dug through my old stuff as I'm preparing for the 15th anniversary of the Souvenirs, and I found this packet of poetry, which I used to keep in my pocket all the time. Each week, as I would memorize a piece of poetry, I would write it out on a piece of paper and carry it around my pocket, and every time I was walking between classes or just casually doing something, I would pull it out and go over it and over it and over it and try to memorize it. And so I memorized like 2 or 3 poems a week, and that was really the beginning of the Souvenirs. I just found this one, which, as you can see at the top there, says Ideas for Club Names. And I had several different ideas that we had talked about, and the Souvenirs was the one that ultimately was starred and became the club name. Here's where I memorized Frost's Fire and Ice, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Eve, Keats' When I Have Fears That I Might Cease to Be, E. Cummings' Old Age Sticks, part of Goblin Market, I never got past all the fruit. Here's the Walrus and the Carpenter. Charge of the Light Brigade. There's the Lady of Shalott, which I went over so many times that it disintegrated to pieces. The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. And this was the very first sheet of paper used by the Souvenirs before we became a club. That was the first piece I memorized with Andrea Zahler. It's from Julius Caesar. I could be moved if I were you. If I could pray to move, prayers would move me. But I am constant as the northern star, of whose true fixed and resting quality there is no fellow in the firmament. The skies are painted with unnumbered sparks, they all are fire, and every one does shine. I still got it up here! The wonderful thing about memorizing poetry is that it's something that sticks with you. It becomes a really useful tool for your life. When you're having a really bad day, and there's a poem that exactly fits that feeling, you can conjure it up and recite it, or just think about it in your head. When you're having a great day and you're feeling exuberant, there's poetry that captures that idea. When you're exhausted and you're barely crawling into work or to school and you just feel like you can't go on, there's poetry for that too. There's poetry for all the moments that you're sitting there waiting for something to happen. Sometimes when I have to give the ACT, I walk around the room staring at all these people testing for hours and hours and hours, and what keeps me alive during that time is running poetry through my head. Here's one I started but never got all the way through, Walt Whitman's Out of the Cradle Endlessly Rocking. My Last Duchess. I remember reciting this and messing up in the middle in front of a big audience. Yeats' The Second Coming. Turning and turning in the widening gyre. Ah, here's a Victor Hugo poem that I tried to memorize in French. Don't think that one stuck quite as well, but it'll probably come back to me if I looked over it a few times. Quand nous habitions tous ensemble, sur nos collines d'autrefois, où le corps le buisson tremble. No, I do remember it! So I tell you what, give it a shot. Pick a couple poems that you just really like, and memorize them. Go over them and over them and over them. Just write them down on a sheet of paper or print them off, and keep them in your pocket. Whip them out every once in a while, and read them over. The more you read them out loud, the more they stick in your mind. The more they stick in your mind, the more pleasure you have from saying them and reading them. Sometimes there's a poem that I only partially understood, but by reading it over and over and over again, it meant more and more to me. I can't tell you how many times I've come back to the same poems and found them rich and meaningful and powerful for me in whatever moment I have to be in. So here's to 15 years of the Souvenirs and for the poetry that's been bouncing around in my head for 15 years. Thanks for watching. You can click to subscribe or watch another video, and I'll see you next time with more about the Souvenirs.